Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. Now, before we begin, I'd just like to remind everybody that in 2019, because YouTube was caught data mining the information of underage users, therefore violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, they implemented policy meant to dodge responsibility and scapegoat creators, making me have to ensure that everyone understands that this video is not meant for children. It is not advertised towards kids. It is not targeted towards kids. Doctor Who is a family show, of course, that anyone can watch, including children, but this video, as with all the videos on my channel, are looking at the show from an adult perspective, and therefore could be discussing adult themes and topics, so viewer discretion is advised. But it's the 26th of August, 2020, and I just finished, and today we are starting a look at the second story in the second release of the Kamelion trilogy, Power Game. And yeah, this one's a bit more interesting, especially coming right off of Black Thursday. This one's less impactful in a lot of ways. Now, I don't want to come across as completely negative, but when you have Black Thursday, which is this incredibly impactful, really, really solid story, all about, about like loss and things of that nature. Meanwhile, Power Game does something very different. It's a story where you basically get the characters all sort of doing something different. Yeah, we're in 1984. That's the time we are in for this story, and as such, and there is a television show called The Incredible Power Game. And the Incredible Power Game has contestants that people don't really know, or you don't really get to see it, see who they are, or what they kind of want. It's a point where you see, they're basically abducted, and it's just in the area of York, and Tegan is missing, and we open with Tegan being forced to play this incredible power game. This basically then does the premise that the television story Bad Wolf did, where the games are deadly, can be deadly, and this character called the Hostess, who has a name that isn't pronounceable in your language as a human, is basically kidnapping these people, and forcing them to play these games so they can so I guess they can find their way back home. It's, as the story goes, it's good. It's a really, really good premise, and it's a fun premise. It just feels like a lot of a calm down, because you have a story like, you have a story where you can get, you can really, really get the, see who the characters are, and what they want, and what they need, and what they desire. But then you basically deal with just this being all about that, and it's just not all it's not as impactful. I love the mystery aspect, the mystery of the Doctor and Turlough trying to figure out where Tegan is, and what's happened to Tegan is excellent. I love the way Peter Davis and Mark Strickson play it. I love that that there are some nice cheeky references to the broadcasting hijack of in the 80s when Horror Fang Rock that broadcast was hijacked in Chicago, with the Max Headroom incident. But this is just one of those stories where you don't necessarily get to see, okay, here's what we're doing, here's the amazingness that is this plot. It's much more reserved to, we've got some ideas, you might like them, that's what we're going with. It's not this big, amazing adventure, but it is a great episode. Again, the characters have fun. There is this nice off-kilter element as Tegan slowly learns to enjoy the games, which is just, creepy and weird and something of that. Just it's really sinister, and I do. I do really, really like that. Yeah, there is something about that just makes this really, really interesting and really, really fun, and just different enough that you have such a different story. And the big reveal that the hostess is actually Kamelion is also good and well executed. It's a well executed, for lack of a better term, twist, because that is something that you would kind of expect Kamelion to do, and he's being influenced again by something weird and by something different. I do, and I love just the way that the woman playing Kamelion, it's not John Colshaw, it's the woman playing sort of the hostess character, because John Colshaw is essentially there, is there in spirit, but you don't actually really hear him, in at least in this first episode. It's something different and something I do really, really enjoy. It's a good start to the story, but it's a lot less high stakes than Black Thursday was. So overall, I'm going to give part 1 of Power Game an 8 out of 10. Okay, it is the 27th of August, 2020. I just finished listening to part 2 of Power Game, the concluding episode. Yeah, this is a 2-parter. It runs by pretty quickly. I have a lot of thoughts about this. Again, interestingly, Kamelion is a big part of the story, even though John Colshaw doesn't actually appear in the role here, which I think that's an interesting decision, a really, really interesting decision, because Colshaw, again, it allows someone else to play the role, and it makes it shows that Big Finish are really going to take advantage of the fact that, as a character, Kamelion isn't just, is much more than just the, here's a robot. There is the shape-shifting aspect. Essentially, the hostess character is Kamelion, played by Harriet Kershaw. this is one of those. This is also one of those little things where you see a lot of what the story does, and what the story can do. It's very, very interesting and very different because of that. I really like what Power Game essentially brings to the table. Again, because it has everyone kind of hypnotized. It's also humanizes Kamelion in a way that it could get really boring if there was the constant, oh, Kamelion isn't in control of their actions. Instead, there's actually more of an emphasis on the fact that no one is really in control of their actions when taken by the hostess. It's a psychic alien that has the power essentially to take over minds. It's something very, very different and a bit odd, but understandable. You can do odd but understandable. That's a completely normal, regular, everyday thing. To do a story like this, and I really like what Power Game, does with the characters. There is a bunch of interesting time stuff played around with it, and you have essentially the Doctor finding a solution through peaceful means, which is especially interesting for the Fifth Doctor, because especially this is at a point where we're slowly getting to the point in the Fifth Doctor's era where peaceful means aren't really how this Doctor is going to find a solution. He more finds it sadly through violence, and we will see that through various stories as they continue. This is a very, very different thing. It's a very different story and something that I think is very, very interesting, if not necessarily, perfect. This is in fact just a story, and as such, I will say it does a lot of good. Again, it's definitely, of the two stories in this duology, the weaker one. This is the one where it is a little weaker on the merits of the fact that this that Black Thursday was so emotional. But I think the second episode of Power Game, Eddie Robson gets a chance to really show what he's made of and do something that's even better than the first episode. It creates a really, really good example of reality TV and these sort of game shows and sort of the insidious nature of it, all doing very, very interesting things. So much so that I can't help but say that this is definitely a great episode, and it does just some really, really great things. But it's again, seeing the Doctor and Turlough piece their way together to find Tegan and save her, and by extension then essentially save Kamelion from his quote-unquote fate, just at the fact that he's been taken over. is great. It is, that I think really the story does such a good job of just making everything, making everything become of interest somehow. There's the interest there of here's what the story can do, here's what the story can be, here's what we can do with Kamelion now that we have him, and it creates something interesting. And then again, Janet Fielding is great, and you have this great moment where Tegan, I guess, makes up with Kamelion. It's a very, very, I guess touching is maybe not the right word, but it's definitely an interesting dynamic for them, because she didn't trust Kamelion and now she sort of does. It creates something different, but overall, Power Game is a great episode. I'm gonna have to give part 2 a 9 out of 10. That being said, as this is the end of the story, we add up the scores and average them out to give Power Game a final score of 8.5 out of 10. And with that, we're at the end of another episode of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. So, as always, thank you everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe if you're already, and hit the bell icon so you don't ever miss an upload. Let's get a conversation going. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you like the story? Do you not like the story? Give me some thoughts, especially on Kamelion, considering Kamelion is one of those not talked about stories. And of course, join me next time when we finish the Kamelion trilogy, with the final story in this trilogy, written by one Jonathan Morris, The Kamelion Empire.